Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Minister of Heritage is fed up, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians are fed up as well. Fed up of paying $16,800 on groceries every year. Fed up with paying 51% more on groceries. Fed up with paying 30% more on beef. Fed up with paying 21% more for whole chickens. Mr. Speaker, how many people will this Prime Minister force to the food bank before he, too, gets fed up? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I am happy that inflation in Canada is lower. It's 2.2%, according to the Consumer Price Index. Second thing, I am proud of that salaries are on the rise. 3.2% higher. We are making progress. Joblessness is down. The economy is growing. Life is good. There you have it. He's happy with grocery prices. According to a report on food prices in Canada, when this Liberal government took power, it cost $8,300 per year for an average family to purchase groceries. Now it costs $16,800. Grocery prices doubled due to the inflation-driving taxes and deficits that have driven up the price of everything. The Prime Minister promised that he could be judged by grocery prices. So, how much will it cost to eat in 2026? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I fully understand why the opposition leader is ignoring the fact that this is a new Canadian government, one that has created the strongest economy in the G7. That's the truth. That's what the numbers show. That is the future of our great country.
According to Canada's food price report, when the Liberals took office, the cost of a basket of groceries was $8,300. Now, it's $16,800, double. Liberal inflationary deficits and taxes on farm equipment, fertilizer, food processors have all exploded the cost of food. Tomorrow, that same report will be released projecting the cost for next year. Given the Prime Minister has promised to be judged by the prices at the grocery store, how much will Canadians have to spend on groceries to survive next year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's get our numbers straight. The Canadian economy is the strongest growing economy in the G7, 2.6% annualized. Canadian wages are growing faster than inflation. For every month that this government has been in office, 3.2%, over 2.2%. Unemployment is down, wages are up, the land is strong, we're moving forward.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, as you walk down the grocery aisle, watching the prices rise before your eyes, know that the Prime Minister, who stashes his cash in a tax haven, says that you've never had it so good. You, the Canadian people who have seen your grocery bills literally double under this government, from $8,300 to $16,800 in a decade.
Shameful.
Tomorrow, we will find out in the Canada Food Price Report how much groceries will cost an average family next year. Given the Prime Minister has promised to be judged on the price of groceries, will he tell Canadian families how much they have to pay to survive?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this government is happy to tell Canadian families is we cut their taxes for 22 million Canadians. We cut the taxes on first-time home buyers. And we are investing. We are investing a budget which the Leader of the Opposition and the members opposite voted against. A budget that is going to cause $1 trillion of investment in this country over the next 5 years, grow jobs, grow futures for Canada. We believe in Canada. Come join us.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We voted against this Prime Minister doubling Justin Trudeau's deficit, which will drive up groceries even more. And what's he spending the money on? On corporate bailouts for companies that ship jobs out of Canada. The Prime Minister promised he would negotiate a win and have a deal by July 21st. Still no win, still no deal, still no elbows. And now 1,000 workers at Algoma Steel are losing their jobs. We now learn that the Prime Minister gave $400 million to the corporate executives of that company without any job guarantees. How is it the Prime Minister could have been so incompetent to saddle Canadians who can't afford to pay their bills with a $400 million bailout bill without any guarantee of jobs staying in Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, these are difficult times in Sault Ste. Marie, and our hearts go to the families. But as I quote the CEO of Algoma Steel, that there would be an even darker day if this government hadn't acted. Exactly. That loan, that support, saved 2/3 of those jobs. That loan, that support gives Algoma a bridge to the future that we are building strong in this country and that they voted against.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
As long as the CEO is happy with the $400 million gift he got from the Prime Minister, that's all that matters to these Liberals. He didn't give the workers a bridge to the future, he gave them a bridge to the unemployment lines, 1,000 of them. 1/3 of the workers at Algoma in Sault Ste. Marie have now lost their jobs after the Prime Minister paid to have those jobs shipped abroad. How is it that he could have been so irresponsible with the money of hardworking Canadians that he would pay a corporate CEO $400 million to send 1,000 jobs south?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, may I quote a Conservative leader that's actually in office? The Premier of Ontario. We had a choice. Save 2/3 of the jobs or let the company go down. We chose the future. We chose the future for Algoma Steel so they can invest in the future, so we can buy Canadian, so we can build this country. They had an opportunity to vote for that future. They voted against it. It's good that we're here.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Nature left, in his words, to start some reflection because the Liberal Party neglected their progressive wing. They only won as many seats as they did because Bloc supporters voted for the Liberals. After the member for Laurier Ste. Marie left, the Prime Minister appointed a replacement, but who will speak for language, culture, and Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. May I? Mr. Speaker, we have 44 MPs here speaking for Quebec. And Mr. Speaker, as Prime Minister, as an Anglophone, I will still protect the French language. I will protect Quebec culture. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, if the Prime Minister keeps behaving like an autocrat, he might have a chance to run for election again. People voted in the Liberals with the climate in mind. They also voted in the government with trade negotiations in mind, and the Prime Minister is neglecting both of these files. He is not doing what he said he would, and he is doing what he said he would not. Why doesn't he listen to his former minister? Mr. Speaker, I am continuing to work towards our climate goals because we need major investments, not just rules. We need investment in clean electricity in Quebec, in nuclear power in Alberta and Ontario. We need investment in carbon capture. We will get all of this done. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister seems to think that nuclear energy is clean energy. This is the Prime Minister who is getting rid of the emissions cap, including for the production of electricity. When you lose your voters, it's hard to get them back. For his own good, then, will the Prime Minister give up his oil agenda, restore his climate agenda, and start caring about Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we will strengthen our climate agenda. We have only begun to invest in the sector. For example, in the budget, there are $4 billion invested in Hydro-Quebec and clean electricity through investment tax credits. And that is only the start of a major project.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Liberals love to give corporate bailouts and handouts to companies that ship jobs out of our country. Now we learn the Liberal government has pledged $15 billion, or $1,000 for every tax-paying family in Canada, people who can't afford food, to Stellantis. And Mr. Speaker, investment is fleeing this country almost as fast as the Prime Minister is running out the back door of Parliament right now. Why won't he?
The honourable member knows that that's offside. The honourable member knows. Go to the next question, which is also that of the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister gets angry and runs out the door rather than answering the questions about the cost.
He didn't say he wasn't here.
$15 billion out the door, $1,000 for every tax-paying family to a company that is shipping jobs out of the country. Why is he sending our dollars away, our jobs away, while he runs away?
L'honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
From this Conservative, never, not today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. By the time they ask questions on this side of the House, every single member on this side, Mr. Speaker, we're fighting for Canada. We're fighting for auto industry. We're fighting for our workers. We're fighting to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker. We should all join to defend our workers in the middle of a trade war. We don't need that kind of conservative politics. We need to stand up for Canada, build Canada strong. I believe in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister can't stand up for workers if he can't even stand up in the House of Commons. And that Finance Minister is the one that signed the sweetheart $15 billion subsidy deal.
I've got company here.
Just do the job.
I've got company. I didn't hear the beginning of the question. The member did lose one question, but I'd like him to start from the top on that one.
The Prime Minister cannot stand up for workers if he cannot even stand up and answer my questions, Mr. Speaker. And that Finance Minister is not stood up for workers either. He signed a $15 billion sweetheart subsidy deal with Stellantis. And now, that same company, taking our tax dollars, the equivalent of $1,000 for every family in Canada, is shipping the jobs to the United States of America. The current industry minister says she has not even read the $15 billion contract. Has the Prime Minister even read the contract, or did he simply look at the $15 billion deal and say, who cares?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are watching at home are looking at someone whose only deed has ever made was to come to this House, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we have always stood to make sure we will build this country. We will attract investment, Mr. Speaker. He should be ashamed. Ask Canadian, when is the last deal he brought in this country, Mr. Speaker? Ask him when he created one job in his country apart his own job, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we will always stand for workers. We will bring investment. We will build a strongest economy in the G7 because we believe in Canada. We're going to fight, Mr. Speaker, every single day for Canada.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
You're going to go and report to the Prime Minister to the Witness Protection Program because he refuses to stand in this House and answer about his government's expenditure of $15 billion, $1,000 for every Canadian family to one company, supposedly to create jobs. That same company now ships those jobs south of the border, and the government is covering up the contract. Yesterday, we learned from the company that they don't have any reason to retract the contract. So why doesn't the government release the full details of the contract so that Canadians can find out how badly the Prime Minister ripped them off?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
3 points. First, he should ask the member from Windsor-Tecumseh from his side of the House whether she agrees with what he says regarding the Stellantis workers in Windsor. Second, when it comes to the documents, the committee members will have access to all the documents. That's a moot question.
That's right.
Third, when it comes to what is happening with Stellantis at Brampton, we had a contract. They broke the contract. Stellantis did. We'll get our money back, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
3 points, Mr. Speaker, about this $15 billion bailout and handout. She didn't read the contract, she didn't read the contract, and she didn't read the contract. How can she possibly claim she's going to get the money back when she doesn't know what legal powers are in the contract? Because she admits she didn't read the contract, Mr. Speaker. So my question to her, as families are lining up at food banks because they can't afford food, how does she justify charging every single household $1,000 for a handout to a company shipping jobs south of the border?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I didn't admit that. Second, I read the contract. And third, the committee members will have all the details. That being said, Mr. Speaker, what we'll do is we will fight for these jobs. We know that the workers are affected in the auto sector, in the steel sector, by the unjustified and unjustifiable American tariffs. And we will make sure that we get these jobs back to Canada, and we'll fight for every single job, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
Madam Speaker, I had the honor to stand with the Unifor workers in Brampton who were out in the rain and the cold. There was not a Liberal around, not a word from the Prime Minister. All of them wanted to know what was happening with their jobs. The Liberals had given money to Stellantis for that plant, given $15 billion to Stellantis for another plant. And those workers, out in the cold, unable to afford their mortgages, were wondering how it was possible for this Prime Minister to give $15 billion without even guaranteeing their jobs. Does he have the courage to stand up now and explain it to their face?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, I don't need any lesson. We don't need at least any lesson from the Conservatives when it comes to courage and standing up for workers that are unionized. That is why I was in Brampton along with the workers, and that is why I was even talking to Lana Payne a bit earlier today, because you know what she was telling me? She was saying to me how much the Harper government and the Conservative government in 2009, when the government at the time decided to bail out GM and Chrysler, they did nothing to protect the workers, and that is what is their record when it comes to the auto sector.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister asked an interesting question. Who cares? Who cares, he asked. Well, he's not there, so he doesn't care, Mr. Speaker.
I assume that the member meant somehow metaphorically. Yeah. But maybe next time, not so many metaphors.
It was a metaphor, just like all those Liberal promises, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately today we learned even more terrible news. The Domtar workers in British Columbia have lost their jobs as a 30th mill has closed under this Liberal government. The Prime Minister promised that he would get a deal to end the tariffs, and those tariffs have tripled, all while he removes the legal challenge against the illegal softwood lumber tariffs. How is it the Prime Minister broke his promise and sold out our lumber workers?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
I'm glad the member opposite has realized there is a trade war. That trade war is creating challenging times for the people of Crofton, and we understand that. I was on the phone with the CEO today working on new solutions to retool that mill. I was on the phone with the Minister of Forestry looking at new fiber solutions for the mill. We are standing up for the forestry industry. They just complain.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised to build one Canadian economy. He wasn't lying. He built one sole economy, one filthy Western oil economy, pipelines. He said he was building a pipeline due to Donald Trump, but not 1 inch of pipeline will be built during the Trump presidency. However, the pipeline will pollute for the next 40 years. This is a betrayal not just of Quebec, but of all the countries who have not given up the fight against climate change. How can these Liberals look themselves in the mirror? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to talk about how we will build Canada strong. When we talk about this, we are talking about hydroelectricity in Iqaluit, the high-speed train between Toronto and Quebec City, all using Canadian steel and aluminum. These are very important projects, and there will be many others. For example, the graphite mine in Quebec. They will create good jobs in Canada and a strong future for our country. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, regardless of what the minister said, Quebecers did not vote in Liberals for them to abandon the fight against climate change and transform Canada into a planetary nuisance. They did not vote for Liberals in order to get a pipeline rammed down the throat of another province. They did not vote for Liberals in order to make our children live through more and more natural disasters. Quebecers did not vote for that. And there's a lot of Liberals who did not vote for that either. Are they not fed up with swallowing this dreck?
L'honorable ministre de l'Identité et de la Culture canadienne.
The Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, this morning, I learned that the separatist movement wants to impose a loyalty test on Quebec artists. I wonder if the Bloc believes in that. It would be surprising because they didn't talk about culture during the budget debate. Quebec separatists do not have a monopoly on Quebec pride. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, not 10 days, not 5 days, not 2 days, just 1 day after inheriting the official languages file, the minister from Ville-Marie said he was fed up with talking about the decline of French in Quebec. As Mathieu Bocoté said so well, it's the usual federal Liberal denial, exasperation, and scorn about the future of French in Quebec. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister realize that he made a monumental mistake when he appointed the least competent Liberal to the most important position to defend the French language in Canada and Quebec. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, there's no one in Canada who thinks that Pierre Poilievre would protect French. I think, yes. He made a mistake, but he still has the floor. I retract the member's name, Mr. Speaker. I know the current member for Carleton will do more to defend French than the previous member for Carleton. The honourable member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. The opposition would never have appointed a unilingual Anglophone Governor-General, I can say that much. We're all fed up on this side of the House. Like all Quebecers, Conservatives are fed up with former Justin Trudeau ministers, fed up with ministers who break our immigration system, fed up with ministers who refuse to recognize the decline of French, fed up with ministers that don't care about Quebec culture. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister also get fed up with this new minister? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure they're fed up after spending 10 years on the opposition benches. I'm sure they're fed up with having to vote against dental care and official languages legislation. I'm sure they're fed up with having to vote against renewable energy in Quebec. They must be really fed up after losing elections with 3 consecutive leaders and facing a defeat with a 4th.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Speaker, the Liberal government handed Algoma Steel $400 million and got 0 Canadian jobs in return. Now, 1,000 workers in Sault Ste. Marie are getting pink slips just weeks before Christmas. Worse, the Liberals knew about these layoffs, and they wrote them the check anyway. They looked steelworkers in the eye and promised to fight for them. The promise turned out to be a $400 million lie, and they knew it from day one. So can anyone over there explain why corporate welfare matters more than Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, it's pretty clear that those Conservatives wouldn't have lifted a hand to help save our steel industry in Canada. That's pretty clear from the nature of the questions. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, do you know what happens when you lose your job? It's a time of panic. And that's why we extended EI for 20 weeks for long-tenured workers. Mr. Speaker, they'll mock this. You know why? Because they voted against it. They voted against the very supports that people need in times of stress. Canadians know we have their backs in the good times and bad.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
The minister actually needs to get her story straight. $400 million to executives at Algoma Steel, but 0 for the people who actually make the steel. And that means 1,000 people are out in the cold at Christmas. Nobody over there has a reasonable explanation for this deal. And this isn't the first time that this mega-dollar mess has been caused. The Liberal minister already admitted that she doesn't read contracts. So I want to know, did the Algoma Steel catch the minister not reading, or is it that just the minister doesn't care?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Speaker, I know they don't know much about working together and collaboration, but Doug Ford does. The Premier of Ontario is working just as hard as this government to save those jobs in Sault Ste. Marie. That's why we made a $400 million loan to Algoma Steel, because we know that those jobs are important, that that company is important to the future of Canada, and that we need a sovereign steel industry in this country. These guys would have let it all go, Mr. Speaker. That's pretty clear.
The honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Yesterday we found out that the Liberals knew Algoma was planning to lay off 1,000 steel workers before giving the company $400 million. I guess the Prime Minister was speaking the truth. He really doesn't care about protecting Canadian jobs. You know who does care? Conservatives care. And so do the thousands of Hamilton steel and manufacturing manufacturing workers who go to bed every night wondering if they're going to have a job in the morning. Why is it with these Liberals there's always a guarantee for corporate welfare, but zero guarantees for the Canadian worker?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
When my colleague is talking about corporate welfare, what I'm saying to him is actually that workers are worth every dime, and particularly Algoma ones in light of the American unjustified tariffs. And that is exactly why we decided, along with the Conservatives in Ontario, actually with Doug Ford's government, to support the company as it was facing existential threat. The company was not going well. We knew we needed to help. We decided to make the investments, and meanwhile, we know that the future can be brighter because we're working on two things: a steel plant, a beam mill, and a plate mill for defense and infrastructure.
L'honorable député de Terrebonne.
Mr. Speaker, this summer, Canadians from coast to coast to coast cheered on Burlington, Ontario's teenage tennis sensation, Victoria Mboko, en route to her victory at the National Bank Canadian Open. Can the Secretary of State for Sport share how this inspiring achievement reflects Canada's growth as a sporting nation and the importance of making tennis and all sports accessible to everyone?
Secrétaire d'État au sport.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport. Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Terrebonne for that excellent question. Victoria Moko's victory at the National Bank Canadian Open reminds us that it is critical to make sport accessible to all Canadians. That's why our government champions sport as a nation-building project. Victoria proves that when we open doors to sport, Canada wins. And we are going to build a strong sports system which will make our nation proud.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
It's time for some facts on the Stellantis contract in the Brampton Assembly Plant. Fact, the Minister of Industry didn't read the contract and as a reward was promoted to Finance Minister. Fact, there's no job guarantee in this contract or they couldn't have laid off 3,000 workers. Fact, they gave $200 million to Stellantis with no conditions. Even Ontario didn't advance the money exactly because of that. Fact, 3,000 auto workers in Brampton are out of work and struggling to make ends meet. How the hell are they so incompetent?
Good question.
The honourable. Whoa. Let's be careful about. Let's be careful about some of the words we use. People are watching at home. Their kids are watching. The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Francis, my mother is scandalized. Speaking of facts, including creating opportunities for the workers in Brampton, here's some facts. The Prime Minister secured $70 billion investment from the UAE into Canada. The German Navy has committed $1 billion for Canadian-made defense equipment. Finnish Nokia recently broke ground on a new $340 million facility in Ottawa. And a few weeks ago, Malaysia Petronas signed a 20-year deal to secure energy from Canada. This is what creating opportunities for workers looks like, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
That answer is unbelievable. We have a minister who didn't read a contract. We have a minister who admits he didn't read the contract, and he's promoted to becoming the finance minister. They talk about there's a job guarantee for workers in Brampton, and there clearly isn't. 3,000 assembly workers in Brampton are out in the cold as Christmas approaches collecting EI. They talk about some contracts and other things, but are doing nothing to get the workers back into their plants. They talk about extended EI. I've met with those workers. They want to be in the plant. They want their jobs back. What are they doing to get the jobs back for those workers?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, here's what is believable. 37,922 jobs through 15 procurement projects across this country. $106.3 billion of investment in our defense sector. The opposition should clamp down on the negativism, help build this country forward, get behind our defense sector, get behind our defense industrial strategy. Let's grow this economy for our people and our future.
The honourable member for Carleton Trail Eagle Creek.
After being ordered to hand over their multi-billion-dollar subsidy deal with Stellantis unredacted, the Liberals refused, with senior officials blaming the company, stating, and I quote, Stellantis outlined every redaction they felt to be necessary, and that they were, quote, comfortable with the redactions they proposed. Problem is, Stellantis has now gone public, saying they never asked for the documents to be blacked out. Will the minister tell us why her officials lied to committee and Canadians?
That's a good question.
We're not quite ready yet. We're not quite ready yet. Yeah, okay. The minister is very popular. The Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once again, they're calling down Canada, they're calling down Saskatchewan. And as the leader of the opposition pontificates from the comfort of Stornoway, Mr. Speaker, our leader, the Prime Minister of Canada, is busy fighting for every inch of trade opportunity in this changing world. The men on this side, men and women on this side of the House are helping win that fight, and Canada is going to continue that fight with or without the opposition.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Pope.
The Prime Minister promised Canadians he was going to negotiate a win with the Americans and that he could handle Donald Trump. Well, not only has he failed to get a deal, but softwood lumber tariffs have tripled under his watch, and he's unilaterally abandoned legal challenges against these tariffs. Now, another mill on Vancouver Island is closing, killing nearly 1,500 direct and indirect jobs. They don't want handouts. They want to keep working. So when will the Prime Minister finally keep his promise to get a lumber deal so that forestry workers stop losing their jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Come on.
He's good. Mr. Speaker, as we said, we're in a trade war. It's hurting the people of Crofton. It's hurting the entire forestry industry. That's why we were on the phone talking with the company about how to retool the factory. Mr. Speaker, that's why we were on the phone with the Minister of Forestry in BC looking at fiber solutions. They complain, we do the work. We're standing with the forestry sector.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Devastated, gutted, heartbroken. Just three of the emotions I felt after learning 375 Canadians would be losing their jobs with the closing of the Crofton Mill. These are Canadians with mortgage payments, with young families, Canadians who were already struggling with the rising cost of living before receiving this terrible news. This government promised to support our workers and secure market access for our goods. Instead, lumber tariffs have tripled and thousands of Canadians have lost their jobs. If their so-called plan is really working, can they guarantee that no more mills in Canada will close as a result?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, that Conservative member needs to take several seats. On my riding of Vancouver Island, I can tell you that they know we are supporting the softwood lumber industry, whereas their plan is to, quote, get out of the way, to, quote, do nothing. Our government is investing in... For Mission Matsqui, Abbotsford. No, not from the top, but the member can keep going. The member maybe can keep going. We'll see.
31.
Okay. The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Esquimalt-Saanich-Sooke and on Vancouver Island, folks know that this government has the backs of the softwood lumber industry and the workers, whereas those folks, the Conservatives, would do nothing. Their plan is simply to get out of the way, where we're providing real supports.
The honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
375 workers at our local Crofton Mill are losing their jobs 10 days before Christmas. 150 jobs gone in Chemainus, 165 in 100 Mile House, 31 BC towns gutted so far. because these Liberals broke their promise to get a deal. The Prime Minister's take on stalled talks? Who cares, he said. There's no burning issues. Well, the people who lost their jobs yesterday care. Their families know this is a burning issue. After these latest losses, why should anyone trust this Prime Minister to get a softwood lumber deal?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the softwood lumber industry is incredibly important to British Columbia, and we stand with the workers, the 375 individuals. We are here to stand with them. British Columbia knows the importance of this industry, and this government is going to invest in it to support them.
The Honourable Member for Ponoka-Disbury.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the radical ex-Minister of the Environment and Greenpeace stuntman said, "I sincerely doubt that the new pipeline will ever get built." As the head of the Liberal Keep It in the Ground caucus, he has continuously poured cold water on the MOU, saying that there's no project, no route, no consensus, and no private sector proponent. The former minister knows what the Prime Minister won't admit, that the West Coast tanker ban makes any project impossible. Will the Prime Minister repeal the tanker ban so we can get our resources to market, or is a new pipeline really just a pipe dream?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite should speak with the Premier of Alberta, who seems very hopeful that we can work together. Rather than put Canada down, we can work together to build this country in an environmentally responsible way in partnership with Indigenous peoples. That's how we build Canada strong.
Member for Ponoka-Disbury.
The Prime Minister isn't serious about building a pipeline. His former orange jumpsuit minister has said that an MOU with Alberta was not an approval of a pipeline. He knows that a decade of his government's anti-resource extraction laws has made it impossible to find a private sector proponent. Just like the NDP Premier of British Columbia, this Prime Minister is hiding behind a tanker ban that blocks Canadian resources from getting to market and will block any future projects. All while U.S. tankers can sail freely through the very same Canadian waters. Will this Prime Minister admit that the last decade of Liberal rule has been a failure and repeal all of the stupid job-killing Trudeau laws?
Two votes, that's going to take a certain amount of time. I think most members want to end the question period in a timely manner. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To listen to these members of Parliament from Alberta is to get a taste of real dejection, Mr. Speaker. Right. Real dejection that what? A Prime Minister of Canada and a Premier of Alberta put their signatures to a solemn document that does what? That creates major possibilities in renewable power, in electric generation, in carbon sequestration, Mr. Speaker, in resource development, in making Canada a renewable and conventional energy superpower. Those guys are pretty disappointed about that, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Northwest.
The Prime Minister disrespected chiefs by shutting them out of the MOU consultations and discussions with Alberta. The Prime Minister talked down to First Nation chiefs yesterday at AFN about not breaking trust for 20 minutes, but then he completely ignored all questions from Alberta First Nations. The Prime Minister is breaking trust with First Nations, he's breaking trust with investors, he's breaking trust with Albertans, British Columbians, his caucus and his own cabinet on whether he'll build a pipeline or not. Will he show real leadership by committing to a pipeline today or continue to just divide Canadians?
Yeah, way to go, Bill!
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, our government continues to respect and acknowledge the important work that they're doing as First Nations leaders across this country. Our ministers have been busy all week listening to rights holders, going to the meetings. I myself, as a former First Nations National Youth Council member and a former regional chief, know the important work that goes into the development of resolutions, all of the different debates that they have. Our government is listening, and we look forward to building our country together with First Nations.
The honourable member for Les Pays d'en Haut.
Mr. Speaker, Canada and especially Quebec have a world-leading aerospace industry. We are currently building the strongest economy in the G7, and our aerospace sector, which in Quebec alone generates $15 billion in GDP with more than 40,000 jobs, will play a huge role in that. The Budget Implementation Act contains important measures to protect our aerospace sector. Quebecers want to see those measures come in. Can the Minister of Finance remind those who are blocking the budget implementation how they are hurting the Quebec aerospace sector? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, indeed, in Budget 2025, there is a lot of good news. Our budget sends a clear message that the aerospace sector is a strategic asset for Canada. Canada is one of the few countries in the world that has a flourishing aerospace sector, thanks to the talent and expertise and know-how of our workers. In Budget 2025, we are making generational investments in defense to support the aerospace industry. But what's really shocking is that the Bloc Québécois is going to vote against Quebec's interests in the budget, and that's really a crying shame.
Yesterday, when responding to questions about the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report on housing, the Prime Minister lectured Canadians, saying, "You don't know numbers." And then the Housing Minister said the Parliamentary Budget Officer was just wrong on his. Well, let me give him the numbers again. Can they solve for this equation? The Prime Minister promised 500,000 new homes a year. His housing bureaucracy will deliver only 5,200 homes per year. That's 99% less than promised. So, can the Minister tell us where will the rest of the houses come from?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The PBO report assumes that none of the current affordable housing programs continue. And that's what will happen if the Conservative Party is in government. They have never delivered on affordable housing before, Mr. Speaker, and they never will again. Mr. Speaker, we are already working with provincial ministers, territorial ministers to put together the next generation of national housing strategy. It's a Team Canada approach. We are doing the work to renew our investment in affordable housing, something the Conservatives will never do.
The Honourable Member for York-Durham.
If bureaucracies built homes after 10 years, we'd all be living in a penthouse like the minister. What he fails to understand is that behind the numbers, behind the crisis, are real Canadians of the next generation shut out of the Canadian dream to earn, save, and own a home. In the GTA, housing starts are down 43% and sales are down 65%. So when the Prime Minister told young Canadians that they need to sacrifice more, why didn't he have the courage to tell them what he really meant was sacrifice the Canadian dream?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's rich to hear this from the party that has stalled the first-time home buyers GST cut since June. That's 5 months, Mr. Speaker, that the Conservatives have been stalling up to $50,000 for first-time home buyers so they can afford their first homes. We had that on the floor of this House starting in June. They've been delaying it. If you want to deliver affordability for young Canadians, put your vote where your mouth is.
Again, I've mentioned this many times. I mentioned many times that one has to go through the chair, or the chair may get offended or something. So
Everybody else can be offended.
the honourable honourable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent, Aquion-Rock. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 10 years ago, Canadians could all buy affordable homes. The dream of buying a home was a promise back then, but now the cost of housing has doubled and people can no longer count on that dream. But now this government has come up with a new idea, Building Canada Homes. But the PBO has been scathing. This organization set a goal, 250,000 new homes, but actually, according to the PBO, it's only going to be 25,000, only 10%. That's what we're actually going to get. Why is this government so great at building red tape? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 10 years ago. There wasn't a single housing organization that didn't heave a sigh of relief when they realized that the Harper decade was finally over, given that the Harper government completely ignored affordable housing. For example, the leader of the official opposition only presided over 6 new affordable housing units. It's shocking to see these Quebec members think that their party is doing such a great job, when actually they're ignoring reality. On this side of the House, we are investing historic sums in affordable housing, and the PPO has not considered some of those programs.
Député de Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, after weeks of conservative delays, the Justice Committee finally resumed its work on the Combating Hate Act, and we will continue that work on Thursday. But, Mr. Speaker, will they make sure bail reform is passed before Christmas? Could the minister speak to the importance of keeping this work moving so that Canadians can see these important justice reforms take place? Thank you so much.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have been clear that they want stronger protections in the face of rising hate, and they want meaningful bail reform, Mr. Speaker. After weeks of conservative delay tactics and stalling in committee, I'm really happy to see that they might move forward on the combating hate crime legislation on Thursday. But however, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to bail reform, the Conservatives are complete hypocrites. Our bail reform legislation will make sentences harsher for criminals, and it will end bail for serious and repeat offenders, Mr. Speaker. But of course, they don't want that to pass, because what would they use for their clickbait to find?
L'honorable député de Beauce.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, my father once promised me that if I worked hard, I could buy a good home to raise my family. Today, can I say the same thing to my daughters? No, Mr. Speaker. Over the last decades, Liberals doubled the cost of housing. And what are they doing to fix this problem? They're creating more red tape with Building Canada homes. For what, $3.2 million homes? Wow, impressive. Will the Minister of Housing rise today and admit that this housing program is a total failure? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is really a total failure is the Conservatives who voted against a budget with historic investments in housing. With a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, with a decrease on taxes on homes for first-time homebuyers. That's the real failure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is telling Canadians to sacrifice during a jobs crisis. They have no money to sign pharmacare agreements or meet their housing promises. But today, we find out they gave $400 million to Algoma Steel when they knew they were cutting 1,000 jobs. And they gave $100 million more than they admitted to Stellantis, who cut 3,000 jobs. Why did the Liberals give $500 million to companies that just eliminated 4,000 Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
While the member opposite talks about affordability for Canadians, I would just want to remind this House that it's the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and we do have members here in Ottawa today that work so hard to make sure that people with disabilities have full opportunities to participate in the workforce, Mr. Speaker, something we should all take seriously. And that member voted against that very fund that supports that work, Mr. Speaker. He also voted against the Canada Disability Benefit, Mr. Speaker. People should be putting their money where their mouth is and standing up for Canadians who just want a fair shot to participate.
And that, ça met fin à la période des questions.
This concludes question period.